Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Whoops, sorry. I'm getting a feedback here. Anyhow, we have several pieces of legislation tonight. We're dealing with 17-55. The first part says there is hereby an appropriation of the unappropriated balance of the 671 landfill fund in the amount of $370,000 payment on a note. Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
About 2 months ago, this committee approved legislation that allowed us to merge a couple of short-term bond anticipation notes together. One of them was this $370,000 for the landfill. It is now a long-term bond. So the money came in from the note sale. We need to appropriate that so we can pay off the short-term bond anticipation note.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Bowden.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cost. Are there any questions or comments from the committee or from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Moves on to full council. Section 2, there is hereby an appropriation of the unappropriated balance of the 422 debt fund in the amount of $2,775 interest payment landfill.
This appropriation will allow us to pay the interest on the $370,000.
Okay.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bug.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cost. Do you have any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries and moves on to full council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Section 3, there is hereby an appropriation of the unappropriated balance of the 930 JED fund in the amount of $893.50, second quarter income tax collection distribution. Mrs.
Good evening. This is an appropriation out of the intra-government fund to be able to pay the Pataskala JED what we collected for them in the second quarter.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Cost. Second by Mr. Bub. Any comments or questions from the committee or the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. And one
There was
more.
just, yep.
Section 3, there is hereby an appropriation. Wait a minute, for some reason I have two of those. Section 4, there is hereby an appropriation of the unappropriated balance of the 931 JED Z2 fund in the amount of $537,000 second quarter income tax collection distribution.
Again, it's also coming from the intra-government fund for the second quarter declaration, income tax collections for the Aetna JED Z2.
Okay.
Motion.
Motion by Cost.
Second.
Second by Bud. Any comments or questions from the audience? From the committee? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much. Okay, for Resolution 17-56, Section 1 says there is hereby a disappropriation of the appropriated balance of the 100 General Fund in the amount of $7,471.64 unused salary and benefits for janitorial work from June 18th to August 26th of 2017. Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have one of our employees that has been sick for a period of time. We've employed a professional company to come in and clean the buildings and the police station, many different places while waiting for this employee to either come back or go out on disability. So simply what we're doing here is we're just disappropriating her salary that we're not paying so we can use it for professional services to keep the buildings clean.
Okay, thank you.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bug.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cost. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And finally, there is hereby an appropriation of the unappropriated balance of the 100 General Fund in the amount of $7,471.64 janitorial contract labor.
Story remains the same. We just won't be able to use it to pay for contract labor now.
I see, got it.
Motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Bub,
Second.
second by Mr. Cost. Any comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Well, that was short
Thank
and
you.
sweet. We are adjourned. Service Committee is next.
Okay, we'll call the Service Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Rath, Cost, Bub, Floyd, and Jonathan Wang sitting in for Mr. Frazier. Up first, we'll consider Resolution 17-57, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement for professional services relative to reimbursement of fuel taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We became aware that, and I want to use the key term might, there might be the availability of a rebate of some fuel taxes. There might, and we're not exactly sure how to guide through and apply for those. So there's companies out there that do that. All this allows me to do is to enter into an agreement to have that examined by the company. And what the basic agreement would say is something along these lines. If there is an availability for some refunds, that the first year they would file all the applicable paperwork and show us how to do it. They would take a portion of those refunds the first year, and then every year thereafter, we would have the knowledge and the wherewithal to do it on our own. And if we find that there's nothing available for us or we don't qualify, there's no cost to the city. The only cost would come in is if there were the availability of some refunds.
So there's no upfront cost. They're only going to take a percentage of the reimbursement if there is any.
If there is any.
Do you have
And
any idea what the percentage is?
Yeah, it'd be 50% of the first one.
50%.
But they would give us all the applicable tools to move forward in the future. I spent a great deal of time with Doug Sasson talking about this and going over this. And at the end of the day, we both kind of boiled it down to the fact that the city's never done this. We've never looked at this. We don't know what the refunds would be, if any. And why not have somebody take a look at it? And if we pay a one-time fee and we get 50% of something that we never would have got the first time, and then we can do it on our own from year to year, it seemed reasonable.
Any other questions? Mr. Lang?
Yeah, so have we looked at any other companies to kind of compare rates and see, if this is the market?
No, this was an unusual thing. This fella came in, and him and I got to talking about opportunities for the city, and he brought many different things. And this was the one area that he brought to my attention that we had not examined. Again, he will show us these savings, if there are any, and we'll take a look at it.
But we don't know if there's competitors out there that do this also.
No.
Any other questions? Mr. Cost?
And would he just be looking at the previous year, or how far back?
I believe it's the previous year, and it would be for police, fire, street, traffic, and water.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Floyd. Second. Second by Bub. Any questions from the audience?
Hey Jeff, let me say this too. What his ask for was 50% of the first year savings. That's not necessarily what I'm going to give him. I'm just telling you what he asked for. When it gets down to the point of having the ability to negotiate it, I'll start at a different number. But that's a starting point number is what I would say.
It's a big chunk.
Yeah. 50% does sound like, if it's $1,000, it's $500. If it's $10,000, it's $5,000. So yeah, it does become that. So we'll get an idea of what it looks like.
And he is taking all the risk.
Yeah.
So, all right. Any other questions? Comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And that concludes the Service Committee. Up next will be Personnel Committee.
Okay, it is 5:41. We'll call this Personnel Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Ryan Bubb, Jonathan Lang, Bill Koss, Mike Mangus, Jeff Rath. 2 items on this evening's agenda. The first item this evening is ordinance number 17-33, approving, accepting, ratifying, and adopting an employment agreement between the City of Newark, Ohio, and AFSCME Local 2963 and Ohio Council 8, AFL-CIO, providing for the application of all terms, conditions, and benefits of said agreement retroactively to January 1st, 2017, repealing all ordinances and resolutions in conflict with the provisions of said employment agreements and declaring an emergency. Human Resources Director Mike Buskirk is at the podium. If you want to go ahead and go over this ordinance and go over 1733B kind of at the same time, so it makes sense for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's what I was going to suggest, that we do them both at the same time. We have a tentative agreement with the AFSCME union, and if you'll remember earlier in the year when we did police and fire, AFSCME did a Me Too on the benefits and on the wages. So those have already been approved, if you will. The rest of the contract, there were 2 or 3, maybe 4 little items that we changed, didn't amount to hardly anything. So if you have questions, we need to go to executive session.
Is there any questions or comments from anyone on this board? What about from the audience? Questions or comments? And the first item, 17-33, is approving, and then the second one, 1733B, is rejecting. So you'll have the option to vote on both as well. So if I see no questions or comments, I will entertain a motion on 17-33A.
I would like to make a motion to accept 17-33A.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Mike Mangus, a second by Jonathan Lang, to accept, to move on to council 17-33A. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving this on to a full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? This motion passes 5-0. 17-33B, which is rejecting an employment agreement between the City of Newark, Ohio, and AFSCME Local 2963 and Ohio Council 8, AFL-CIO, providing for the application of all terms, conditions, and benefits of said agreement retroactively to August 17th and declaring an emergency. And again, this ordinance is rejecting. Do I have any questions or comments regarding this? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to reject this ordinance.
Motion.
There's a motion by Lang, a second by Cost. Further questions, comments regarding the motion to reject?
Procedural question, please.
Go ahead.
If we've accepted A, is a vote on B kind of a moot point?
Well, I think, and the law director's here, but I think because we're moving this on to a full council, this gives both full council to consider both. Is that correct?
You could take action rejecting it, but I would probably just let it die if that's your wish and not take any action on it at all.
Okay.
Or we can pass them both and give full council the opportunity to vote.
It was my understanding from the law director that we do both of these to give the option in that we don't want to take no action on this. So we do both ordinances so that you all have the option to do either one, but we shouldn't pass both of them on to council because otherwise there's two conflicting things. So if it's your wish to send on the adoption, then you need to move that on, but you can't take both of them on.
Okay. I think with that being said, Mr. Lang, if you want to withdraw your motion, I will consider that. And if you want to withdraw your second, you could do that as well. So, with that being said, I do not have a motion or a second, so this ordinance will not move on to full council. So, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
With that being said, there's no other items on the agenda tonight. We'll adjourn this meeting at 5:47. Thank you.